And these operational costs are, in my opinion, one of the main factors behind the high cross-border payment.
Hello and welcome back to the Bankers Masterclass series in association with Saxo Payments, looking at how banks can use utility banking to drive forward innovation in financial services. I'm Joy McKnight, Deputy Editor of The Banker, and I'm joined by Anders Lacour, co-founder and CEO of Saxo Payments. In Chapter 2, we'll explore the role an industry utility could play in reducing costs and increasing efficiency in driving forward innovation. Anders, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you.
So what would you say is driving the high cost in cross-border payments today?
I think if you look at the core banking as of today, we are in a situation where a lot of the IT infrastructure that is running cross-border payments and core banking is developed in the 70s and the 80s. And if you combine that with a compliance framework of 2012, 13 and 14, you get very high operational costs. And these operational costs are, in my opinion, one of the main factors behind the high cross-border payment. It might not be very profitable for the banks to actually deliver this service, especially not in the future where we must expect this to become a commodity. And I think the new compliance regulation and the IT legacy, a combination of that, are the two main drivers of the high cost.
But also there's these new competitors, the fintechs, that are sort of starting to come and play in this area. You know, how are they really affecting the margins?
I think if you look at the fintechs, they've done a really good job over the last 5-8 years to take advantage of the new regulation within financial services, where they can actually deliver financial services without holding a banking license. And in that respect, we should expect these regulatory changes to put a lot of pressure on the margins within core banking services over the next couple of years. They're already doing that now with the entrance of the fintechs in that market.
So the fintechs are providing this new customer experience, especially in the retail area. How is this now sort of spilling over into the correspondent banking area?
I think, as with many new innovations, it starts up with a push on the consumer, and that's why it's a natural fit that a lot of the innovation or the new user experience we've seen started up on the consumer side. Now, many of the businesses are starting to mature, and we've seen businesses like Revolut and TransferWise actually moving into the corporate space, delivering services to SMEs that is literally based on the same UI as they've used for the consumer side. So I think on the positive side, we are actually seeing a trend where especially the SME segment is being filled with businesses that do not only service retail, but also, let's call it, the corporate retail part of it.
And you already mentioned sort of some of the challenges that the banks face. How do you think that an industry utility can really drive forward innovation in cross-border payments?
I think if you look at the utility as a concept, we saw in the 70s and the 80s the power industry or the water industry going through a lot of changes. We've actually mentioned that in our latest white paper. And what we're seeing now in the financial service, I think, is some of the same characteristic here, where we'll go from kind of vertical integration that we've seen previously to a much more vertically separated environment where you will literally specialize in different parts of the value chain. And in that respect, if a bank, or at least a bank that does not have the scale to be a global bank, uses a utility for its non-core functions, then it can then focus the resources on what it should do in the new age of banking, literally developing agile products, a broad palette of very, very agile products in the domestic core, including open APIs and these kind of products.
Excellent. Thanks so much for your insights, Anders. In Chapter 3, we'll discuss the emergence of fintech startups and the ways in which banks are collaborating with them to help accelerate their digital transformation, but also some of the issues small banks face when trying to engage with fintechs.